welcome. I am so excited. I love doing these workshops. And this is the first one that I've been able to do since like early May. So all summer I have been like just really wanting to do this workshop. And I am so excited that you were all excited to join this topic. Last time I did a workshop about making brand guidelines. And then afterwards, I sent on a survey and I asked people, like, what topic would you be most interested in? And how to make logos in an hour was by far the top choice. And I could have done a workshop pretty quickly after that survey, but I wanted to like take some time and really pay attention to logos and do some research. So that's what I've been doing for most of the summer is just like paying attention to logos that I see in the wild, and doing research to make this workshop as simple and easy as it can be for all of us. I love watching or seeing your TV shows in the chat box. I would love to get to know you all a little bit more. So in the chat box, can you put where you're calling from? I know we're chatting shows right now, but where are we all calling from? I always love to see where in the world. Nashville. I'm in Nashville too. Chicago, New Hampshire, Sam's house, Argentina, Lebanon, Portugal. Wow, we are everywhere. Clarksville, Tennessee, Georgia, Montreal, Santa Monica. Okay. We are spread all over, which is like so exciting. It's one of my favorite parts about these workshops is that we all get to come together and learn about design, even though we are like pretty spread apart. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. If you see Chris Remble in the chat, that's my husband and the developer of some of our tools. He is going to be helping with the chat, answering your questions, so that I can focus on leading the workshop. He's got a list of links that he'll be sending out. If you've done workshops with us before, you'll remember him. Who here has been to a workshop? Type a 1 if you've done one of our workshops before. If you've come to, cool. Okay, we've got some return. Yeah, I'm seeing some familiar names. This is so cool. Well, welcome back. I'm so excited. Also, I saw some folks were in Florida. I hope everyone's doing okay. I know that hurricane's coming through. Nashville's supposed to get a ton of rain over the next couple days, so I hope everyone's safe and as dry as you can be. Okay, in the chat box, what is your go-to design program? Pardon me. Are we Canva? Are we Figma? Are we Adobe? Are we like a mix? I'm seeing a lot of Canva. I would say I'm kind of like a Canva Figma blend. I use Adobe sparingly. I love it. I love having it for when I need to use it. But like for daily drivers, I'm kind of a Canva and Figma girly. And this presentation's in Canva, in case you were wondering. Okay, so this is really good to know. Lots of Figma canvas. Okay, cool. Same. Well, I am Sam. I make graphic design tools and resources. That's what I do. I started this project a little over a year ago. I started it in the summer of 2023. I made a color palette tester, which is a tool that will let you test all the colors in your color palette for contrast at once, because previous tools only let you test like one pair of colors at a time. And ever since, I've had so much fun. What I really love to do is to create resources, whether they're workshops or tools, to help designers and brands accomplish brand design in a way that feels good, that helps them connect with their target clients, and that does not take them an obscene and unnecessary amount of time, which is why today we're going to be covering 1 hour logos, because I have been a designer for, oh gosh, like 3 years now. And I have, you guys can hear me, right? Can you type a 1 if you can hear me real quick? Okay, cool. Thank you. I have been a designer for like 3 years now, and I have done all different ends of the spectrum as far as like length of project. So I've done the projects where I spent a month brainstorming logo concepts, and then I've done VIP days. And I will say that overthinking didn't, and like taking longer on projects didn't necessarily make me more money as a designer, and it didn't necessarily lead to better brand projects. So, what I tried to do is make things that help you sort of like get to your desired result in a much shorter amount of time, which is what we're going to cover today. So today is going to be a lot, and we're going to move pretty fast. I also want to let you know that this is being recorded. I will send it out later. I will send out the replay. So do not stress if you are worried about, okay, yeah, the recording's going. Sorry. I just wanted to like double check. It is recording. Don't stress if you have to, or like if you miss something. And also, I'm going to be sending out all of these slides later. So don't feel like you have to take a bunch of notes because it'll all come out later. So today we're going to cover what makes a great logo. We're going to look at some famous logos and like kind of peek behind the curtain at what makes them so awesome. We're also going to look at some popular logo shapes and styles. I'm going to cover my favorite design softwares. We're also going to do a step-by-step breakdown of how to design a brand logo in an hour. That's like the meat and potatoes of this project. And I'm going to show you how to create a Favicon and brand stamp. I also have a fun little legal tidbit at the end. There's like kind of a legal, I guess, I don't know how to say it. Like on social media, there's like a whole legal thing about making logos in Canva. And so I asked one of my best friends who happens to be an IP lawyer. And so I have like something for you in case you've ever wondered about making logos in Canva, which is pretty cool. Okay, so we are going to cover the basics to get started. So like, what's a logo? What is a logo? A logo is a visual symbol or design that represents a brand, a business, or an organization. Now, logos can include lots of different things. They don't have to include all of these, but they can include text, like the brand name or a tagline. They can include images or both to create a recognizable identity. So here are some examples of logos, famous logos. So we've got Dunkin' and Starbucks, like these are both major competitors, but you can see how their logos tell the difference between the two brands. And you can immediately see which one is which. You wouldn't really confuse a Dunkin' for a Starbucks just based on their logos. There's also Spotify, Graza olive oil, and Behave. Actually, I think these were designed by the same company or the same design studio. I think it's Gander Design or something. They do some really cool web stuff. But there are like every single business has some sort of logo, even if it's them just typing out their brand name in Times New Roman font or Comic Sans or whatever. Like that is a logo. A logo is a visual way to represent your brand. Everyone's got one. If you have a brand, you have some sort of logo or you need some sort of logo. Now, before we dive in too far, I want to have a quick chat because I want to be super like upfront and real with you guys. I'm going to be showing you how to create a great ready to use brand logo in 1 hour. Like that's the goal. We have 1 hour to hang out together and like chat about logos and deep dive into all this magical stuff. The thing is, 1 hour is a great amount of time, but logos are a really deep and wide concept. So there is like so much that I wish I could cover that I cannot cover in this hour. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you how to make a great, simple, ready to use logo in an hour. And you might be able to pull some things from it, or you might be like want to learn more about some other topics. And you can tell me at the end, maybe we'll do like more expansion workshops in the end. But this style logo that I'm teaching today is like not for every brand or every designer. And that's totally okay. It doesn't have to be for everyone. But in case you've never really considered this as an option, I'm hoping that I get to like open your eyes today. This style logo that I'm going to be teaching today is great for brands that need or that are ready to get their branding launched like ASAP. So if you're a business owner and you're like, oh, I just really want to get started, but like, I don't know, do I have to hire someone to build a logo? Or if you're a designer and you are just like wanting to help a friend with a brand and you don't know how much time you need to spend, like if you need to get something going ASAP, this is for you. This is also a great style for brands that are ready to commit to a simple strategy that works. So they're not trying to like add too many bells and whistles. They want to go simple and get ready to go. It's also great, pardon me, it's also great for early phase brands in their first 1 to 2 years of business or people who want a brand refresh. So I wouldn't necessarily say this is like for everyone, but if you're in your first couple of years, it's really, really great. It's not a good fit, the style that I'm going to be teaching today, for brands that want a super custom like mascot or illustration or graphic in their logo. And it's probably not a good fit for brands that want to have the most clever logo ever created. Like if your whole point of your logo is not necessarily to like connect with your target audience or address their psychological needs. If it's just to like have a super clever logo that has a bunch of hidden stuff in it, like this probably isn't going to be the best fit for you. But we are going to cover what clever logos are. But what we're going to focus on today is simple and easy to implement, which is my kind of vibe. So that's my big juicy disclaimer, is that not every brand needs a super complicated, cheeky, overthought, clever logo. I am not looking down on those though. I think those are awesome. And we're going to look at some really clever logos today, but not every brand needs something like that. And sometimes you just need a really good, solid logo that gets you where you want to go. And I will say I have had a few multi-six-figure, some multi-high six-figure businesses with extremely simple logos, and the logo like never held me back. So success and complication of logos are like not necessarily connected, which is a topic we're going to dive into today. Okay, so let's talk about what makes a great logo. There are several key components that make logos really awesome. So simplicity. A good logo is really easy to recognize and easy to remember. It avoids unnecessary complexity and it focuses just on the essential elements. So it's not like adding too many bells and whistles. It's simple, simple, simple. Target. This logo is very simple. It states the brand name clearly and simply. You can just tell what it is. Another key component is memorability. A good logo makes a strong impression and like sticks in the mind of an audience. It should make sense. So it shouldn't be confusing. They shouldn't wonder why your brand mark is related to the word of your brand or the name of your brand. And Target, again, nails that concept. They have this bullseye symbol that exactly matches the name of the brand, a target. And so it makes it really easy to remember and to recognize. You also want to take into account timelessness. A good logo should remain relevant for years. It should avoid the need for frequent redesigns, which is something that I know can be hard because I know we've got some designers in here. So it's like, oh, I can redesign it. So should I? But your logo should just remain timeless. It should be consistent. The Target logo is really cool because it's changed over time, but the design has always had this iconic bullseye and red color. So even though the logo has evolved over the years, it still remains consistent. Yeah, I don't remember. I think this was the 90s one, or maybe this one was. Yeah, the middle one was the 90s one. And you might still see this logo at some Target stores, but they did a rebrand, I think, in like 2022 or 2023. I linked it here so you can do more of a deep dive on like that logo evolution. But what's great is like you can see that the evolution from this logo to this logo is so minimal that it's not like if you walked into a store that had this branding, you would be like, oh, I don't even understand where I am. Like, you know, you're in Target. It's so similar. So it's easy to evolve. You also want to take into account versatility. You should be able to create multiple variations from the same logo. So what that means is that you should be able to use your logo with or without text and have multiple variations for different amounts of vertical space. And when I say vertical space, I mean like if you have like a small amount of vertical space, like for a website header, or like an equal amount of vertical and horizontal space, like a square. You should be able to have a different logo for each need of your business. You also want your logo to be competitive. Oh, hi, CJ. You've come to like every workshop. It's so good to see your name. You want your logo to be competitive. A good logo helps distinguish a brand from its competitors, either with its style, its colors, or its icons. A potential customer should be able to look at your logo and your competitor's logo and clearly tell a difference. So like if we had to guess what Target's biggest competitor is, at least in person, we would probably guess Walmart. Yes, exactly. So Target and Walmart are like, at least in person, the biggest competitors. And so the color, the brand mark, the lowercase letters help Target stand out against its competitors. Now imagine Imagine if Target used blue, like that same blue as the backdrop. If you were driving by and you were like, oh, we need, I don't know, like paper towels, it might be kind of confusing if Target had that blue background and Walmart had that blue background. You might kind of have to like double check. So it's a great example of how colors and logo and font style can really help you identify one brand from another. You also want your logo to use consistency. And this is more about usage than the logo itself, but the best logos are the ones that are used consistently across marketing materials. Just because you can change your logo every 3 months doesn't mean you should. And I'm saying that to remind myself because, like, doing this whole workshop has made me be like, oh man, logos are so fun. Should I redo my logo? No, just because you can doesn't mean you should. If it's been working, just leave it. And Target is another great example of that. They are very, very consistent in how they use their logo across all parts of the brand. So it's on their shopping carts, it's on their bags, it's on their website, their name tags. They're not switching it up. They are being extremely consistent and putting that brand mark on as many touch points as they can so that you remember. Now, there's also like a bonus points thing that you can include, which is meaning and story. So, a logo with meaning or story behind its design can create a deeper connection with your audience. So it can be linked to your brand's history, to your missions, to your values. There's so many cool ways to do this. I'm going to show you a few, and also there are some designers, especially on social media, that are like really good at this. And I love seeing it. Like I don't love making it, but I do love seeing it. So Amazon is a great, like cheeky, clever logo. They've got this smile shaped arrow from A to Z, and it kind of communicates that they sell everything from A to Z and they aim to make their customers happy. So they have like a built in smiley face right there. Kind of cool. Did you guys know that about Amazon? Type a one if you knew that about Amazon, or two if it's new information. One. Okay. Okay. How about Toblerone? Toblerone logo contains a hidden bear within the outline of the mountain, symbolizing the brand's Swiss heritage in the Matterhorn Mountain, as well as the city of Bern, where the company was founded, which is known as the City of Bears. Also cool is that the word Toblerone has Bern in that order in the logo. So like it's got the city name kind of buried in there. Cool, right? I know. Okay. Does anyone else think of Joey and Friends whenever you see Toblerone? I always think of that one episode where he's so obsessed with that bar. All right. This one might be the most like famous cheeky logo. Yes, it's the London episode. FedEx uses negative space to create the arrow between the E and the X. Is this anyone's first time learning that? Type a one if this is your first time learning that FedEx. What? Okay, now you're never going to be able to unsee it. Yes. FedEx has a hidden arrow, which is like one of the coolest, most clever parts of a logo design ever. It's very, very cool. Okay, this one you probably didn't know because it's a very small business, but I was in Waikiki, Hawaii a couple months ago, and I was at this like food market and I saw this logo and I had to take a picture of it because I thought it was so cool. This is Uncle Billy's Hot Chicken, and it uses the shaka symbol, which some folks have called like the hang 10 symbol, but the shaka symbol is really important in Hawaiian culture. And they use that as the base of the chicken graphic. And I just thought that was like so clever, so cool, so amazing for like where the chicken location was and like how it brought the culture in with the logo and the branding. I just thought, wow, that's a smart logo. I have to take a picture and show my people. So those logos that I just showed you, those are what I call clever logos. They're awesome, but they're not always required. Not everyone has to have a FedEx arrow in their logo. Adding some meaning and some story to your logo is amazing. But like, if I can be a designer friend to you, you don't have to feel pressured to do that every single time. It's cool, but not necessary. Okay, that was so fun. So now let's go over some types of logos. So the first type we're going to go over is called a word mark, which is sometimes called a logo type. This is a logo that consists of a company's name in a distinct font or style. So Dunkin' is a great example. It's like the word Dunkin' in their brand typeface and colors. Now we also have letter marks. Letter marks are logos that consist of the initials or letters of a company. These are really simple and great for brands that are more well known by their initials than the actual brand name. Does anyone know what HBO even stands for? Anyone? Home box office. Exactly. Yep. I know. It's like a thinker. Like if the logo said home box office, we might kind of take like a little bit longer to get there. But HBO is super recognizable because like we've seen it on our apps. We know it as HBO. So if your brand is better known for its initials or like the letters of the brand, you can go with a letter mark. That's totally fine. You can also go for an abstract mark. This is a logo that uses an abstract shape or symbol to convey the brand's identity. So, like the Nike swoosh is a really good example of this. Also, like the apple, like apple with the bite out of it, an abstract mark, or like the Target bullseye symbol. These are just marks that don't have any words in them that represent the brand. Also, if you've never taken a deep dive into the Nike swoosh, it's a really cool story. It was made by a design student. I can't remember for how much, but it was like 12 or $30 or something they sold it. It was like very, very low. But it's simple and it's stuck and it's worked for them. Okay, and then you can also have a mascot logo. A mascot logo is a logo that features a character or mascot to represent the brand. Super, super duper popular with food related brands, but these can be really expensive to create. So like Tony the Tiger is a great example. Let me know in the comments. Can you think of any other like mascot logos or like mascots that represent brands? Like there's Toucan Sam. I can think of that one. Duolingo. Yes, exactly. Duolingo is like the big one I think of. These guys are really expensive because not only do you have to make the mascot one time and it has to usually be pretty customizable, but then you usually have to also make the mascot like do things like Duolingo is like surfing or like learning Spanish on the beach or something. So, if you're like an illustrator or you have like an illustrative designer or someone who can make updates to your mascot on your team, then it's awesome. But otherwise, this one can be pretty pricey. Those are some really good mascots you guys named. Okay, and then we also have emblem logos. These are logos that encase the brand name within a symbol or an icon, usually representing a badge or a seal. So, like the Starbucks logo, this is an emblem version, but there are also Starbucks logos that just include this siren in the middle, and there are some that just include the word mark of like Starbucks coffee. So, this can be like an option in your logo suite, or it can be the one logo in your suite. It really just depends. Combination marks are logos that combine two different types of logos. So like the Adidas logo is a word mark and an abstract mark. So it combines the two. Sometimes logos, designers will have like a word mark logo and an abstract mark and then combine them to make a combination mark. Totally common. These types of logos, usually you pick like a couple of them that you want to have for your brand. But we're going to cover like what you need later. So don't worry. Okay, let's look at some examples of famous logos. One of my favorite things to do. So, as I've been paying attention to logos over the summer, I have noticed something kind of goofy, which is that most major brands actually have very, very simple logos. Does that mean that their logos were super cheap to create? Probably not. Like they had money to spend and they got to pay designers to overthink everything. They got to overthink the target customers and the psychology behind the logo and the evolution from past logos. But when all is said and done, they tend to be very simple. And I just finished watching The Bear, and there was a scene in it where one of the chefs was talking about subtracting and how like the perfect dish was all about subtracting and taking away. And that really makes me think of how logo design is. Like the more you can take away and the more simple you can make your logo, the better it tends to be. So if you find yourself adding bells and whistles just to do it, like remember that a lot of luxury and very successful brands, they subtract. Yes, like Dwight Schrute wisely said, keep it simple, stupid. Exactly. Yeah. Keep it simple. Great advice, hurts my feelings every time. So here are some examples of big brands with surprisingly simple logos. And these logos are so simple that you could probably recreate them in 20 minutes or less with like any design program. And that's not a bad thing. Spotify. Spotify is super simple. It's their brand name in a very like normal sans serif font. There are some customizations, like the F and the Y are combined and the S is a little taller than the rest of the letters. But then they have this green circle with 3 curved lines. It's minimalistic. It highlights their key brand color. It's recognizable. It has a modern feel. Google. This one is so simple, and Google's one of the biggest brands out there. They just have a sans serif wordmark logo, and they use their brand colors as the different letters. Very straightforward, easy to recognize. The E has a playful little tilt to it that I'm sure some designers like very much overthought because they're paid to do that, and it's great. It symbolizes, I'm sure, some like playfulness and progress or things like that. But overall, this is a very simple logo. Hulu. This one, okay, this one's cool. I was really like playing around with the shapes of the Hulu logo. And I think what they do is they have like this tall bar of the L, and then they have this U, and then they combine those to make all the letters. So like the H is like the U and the L together. But again, super simple. They use their green and their black, and it stands out on Apple TV, Roku, very minimal. And then Facebook. Facebook's one of the biggest companies out there, and they have a blue circle with a white F in it. Not too complex. I don't see any like fancy patterns or distracting shapes in this. It's just F for Facebook. And if you've seen Silicon Valley, you'll remember a scene where they talk about like how most tech companies will just do a color, like a circle in their brand color with a lowercase letter for their brand. And like that's their logo. And that's okay. It works for them. It can work for you too. So why do I show you all of this? I show you all of this because a lot of the big major global brands actually have very pared back simple logos. And you don't need to try too hard or create something too complex. You can have a simple logo and be a very, very successful business. And like just a side note, and I don't want to upset anyone by saying this. I'm not saying this from like a judgmental place, but I have been a designer on social media. And sometimes I felt like I was designing for the other designers on social media and less for like my client or the project. And it's like when I wanted to share something from my portfolio, I loved it when designers were like, oh, that's so smart. I love this hidden meaning and things. But like, that's not really why we're doing this. We're doing it so that the project or the brand that we're working on can attract its dream customers and sell its products and services. So, like when you're working on a project, I would just say, remember why you're doing it. Okay, so here's how to design your brand logo in 1 hour. This is going to be like my step-by-step process. We're going to spend some time here. It's going to be really fun. I loved doing this. So here's how to create a word mark logo. That's what I'm going to show you how to make today. It's going to be very easy to do. And hopefully this is going to sort of give you some creative ideas for how to make logos or how to like customize your logos a bit more. And also how to pare back and not like overthink your logos. So you're going to first craft a brand style. Then you're going to choose a design style. Then you're going to choose a logo font. Then you're going to customize your logo font. And then if you want, you can add some fun little design elements, and then you can create variations and export your logo. And here's like a brief process step-by-step overview. I'm going to go over each one of these steps, but I thought you would like this visual at the start to sort of see like how we get where we're going. So step one is to create a brand personality. So to make a brand personality, you are going to craft a list of 5 to 10 brand personality words. And if you've been in any of our past workshops, you're going to like remember this step because we've done this before. We do this with our color palettes. We do this with our fonts. And oh my goodness, big surprise, we do this with our logos too, which is great actually, because your brand personality is going to be the same for every single brand. So, or like every, I'm sorry, if you're working on a brand, the personality is not going to change between the color palette and the fonts. So you only need to do it one time, and then you can apply it to all these design choices. So what you want to do is make a list of 5 to 10 words. For this example brand, I've got adventurous, bold, tough, dependable, warm. So you can sort of picture like what that brand feels like if those are the personality words. A brand personality, by definition, is a set of human characteristics or traits attributed to a brand, giving it a unique character in the mind of consumers. So it answers the question, if my brand was like a person, what kind of friend would it be? Who would it feel like to hang out? That's what your brand personality is. And everyone has one. If you need some inspiration for brand personality traits, here is a QR code that you can click. Chris can also drop in a link. We have 500 brand personality words on our website. What I love to do, thank you, Chris. What I love to do when I'm working with clients is send them this list and have them pull out like as many words as they feel like identify their brand. And then I work with them to pare it down to like 5 to 10, because sometimes 2 words like mean the same thing. That is a really, really important step in any branding process. And then after you have chosen the brand personality, you are going to choose a design style. Now, choosing a design style is a really fun step because you want to take that holistic personality and you want to find the design vibe that matches that holistic personality. So the journey of your logo font is not taking an individual personality trait and then turning that into a font. So what we're not doing is we're saying, okay, the brand is dependable. Well, dependable, like this is a dependable font. That's not really what we're doing. Instead, what we're doing is after we build out that brand personality, we want to choose the overarching design style that matches. And sometimes there's more than one, so don't feel too much pressure. But the design styles are the intentional aesthetic approaches, visual languages, and design techniques that you can use to convey a brand identity. So it's how it feels, what the vibe is, essentially. And there are tons of different things that could be part of a design style. So you can have fonts, colors, textures and patterns, types of images that you use, whether they're like really bright and colorful or like more muted or black and white. The types of shapes that you use. Do you use like rounded shapes? Do you use sharp corners? All of these things are part of a design style. And here are just some examples of design styles. In the comments, let me know, what are like some other design styles that you like? Is there a style that you tend to gravitate towards? Some designers I know really like minimal and neutral, or like elegant, editorial. There are honestly nearly infinite design styles. So this is not a cohesive list. And even within each design style, there are like subcategories. So there's like retro 70s as the mama category. And then there's like bright 70s or more muted 70s, or for pastels, there's like neon pastels, muted pastels. So you can like go a lot of different directions within each one of these. Boho, botanical, those are really, really fun. Boho chic, I love that style too. Okay, and then after you have chosen your design style, then you're going to choose a logo font. So you want to find a logo font that matches your design style and your personality. And like think about Dunkin', like their logo font is very distinctive. And they, I'm sure, chose it because they thought holistically about their brand's personality and what sort of design style they wanted to go with. And then they chose a typeface or had one commissioned that matched. For each design style, there are fonts that fit the vibe best. So let's look at woodsy and rustic. This is like a really fun style. Actually, when I asked recently, like what styles you guys wanted to see more of, like more masculine and like woodsy styles were really, really popular. So I think this will be a fun one to like explore. So when you have a woodsy and rustic design style, here are some fonts that match this style. And this is also from the font pairing kit. So that's one of the tools that we have that helps you pair fonts with your brand or your logo. You might want to go with like slab serif fonts or chunky sans serifs or handcrafted typefaces, monospace fonts. And if you're looking for fonts that match this vibe, you can use these sort of keywords like rustic, camping, earthy, whiskey. Whiskey's a really good one to search for the style font. But here are some examples of fonts that match the woodsy and rustic style. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is just a handful so that you can sort of see like the range. You could go for like a more rounded version or a more like slab version. You could go for like a handwritten rustic version. These are so fun, right? Okay, so there are different ways to search for fonts. So you can search by font style, so like serif, sans serif, handwritten, or you can search by font descriptors. So you can search like vintage, psychedelic, art deco. You can like pick out a descriptive word for that typeface or that vibe or design style and search by that. So I'm going to go over each one of these styles of fonts, and then we're going to talk about like where I like to shop for fonts, which is one of my favorite things. So for serif fonts have a lot, or I'm sorry, every type of font, every font style has its own psychological impacts. So serifs are tradition, respectability, elegance, formality, authority. Serif fonts tend to feel like trustworthy and timeless. Sans serif fonts tend to feel modern and clean and approachable. They feel innovative and minimalistic, which is why we see a lot of tech companies use them because that's sort of what they want to go for, that vibe. Script fonts tend to feel elegant. They make you feel creative. They give a personal touch. They have some romance and nostalgia to them. So like if we look at the Disney logo, we feel that. We feel that romantic, creative nostalgia. That's Script logo. Imagine how different Disney would feel if it had like a serif, like a sharp serif logo. It would feel so different. And display fonts are like the quirky, fun, extroverted fonts. These have uniqueness, creativity, personality, boldness, impact. These just feel like they are not trying to fit in at all. And so if you are wanting to have a logo that just really stands out in your industry, you could totally go for a display font. Now, there are also psychological impacts within each type of font. So like when we go within script fonts can feel elegant, but they can also feel like personal if you go for something handwritten like this. They can feel nostalgic, like this feels sort of like the Coca-Cola font, or they can feel rustic, like old-timey. So you can use really any style font, and then within that style, find different psychological typefaces within it. I love to shop for fonts. It's one of my favorite things. I I don't do too many branding projects anymore, but this is my favorite step in the branding process is like shopping for fonts for their logo or their heading font. Here are my favorite places to go. I love Creative Market. I love Google Fonts. Google Fonts are free typically. I don't know if you ever have to pay for Google Fonts, but if you're looking for something free, that's a great place to start. Or Envato Elements. Creative Market is just it's such a delight. And I'm actually going to show you. Oh, this is a font. I don't know why. I just keep coming back to this font for some reason. So Creative Market has tons of different like designer assets and things. So like if I'm searching for a font for a brand and I just want to go to like the serif fonts or something, I can search through here and like look at all these different typefaces made by small and like medium-sized type designers. And then like let's say how do I do this? Midnight Creative Co. Okay, so I'll type in like the brand name. So like let's say Midnight Creative Co. is the brand name. And then I'll scroll through and just kind of see what that brand would look like in all these different fonts. And this is really fun to do if you're like trying to get some inspiration for, I don't know, a mood board or something, or to like see what kind of ligatures are available. I really I like doing that. Adobe fonts. Um, yeah, I do like Adobe fonts. I believe you have to have an Adobe program to use Adobe fonts. So that's just like one more disclaimer. But yeah, Adobe fonts does have a really good one. Okay. Someone asked about Canva fonts. So if a font is available in Canva, how do you find it outside of Canva? So pretty simply, I would just Google the font name and then like search for it on Google and be like, okay, what I'm trying to think like Tan Nimbus is one that comes to mind. So I would Google Tan Nimbus and I would find that Tan Type Studio sells it. As a side note, you can support type designers by buying directly from them too. So like if there's a font that you really like, you can go directly to them and sometimes they have like specialty pricing. and like some type studios, you might just go back to again and again. Like Nikki Latz, oh, she's right here. She has like a really cool type style. And so if you like that style, you might just go to her again and again. Sam Perret has another cool style. Jen Wagner, who I know we all love, has another cool style. So you might find that certain like type designers just make stuff that you vibe with. Okay, so now we are going to talk about customizing your logo font. I'm actually going to cut out because my chat box got, okay. Like, my chat box is disappearing. There we go. Okay, sorry. Just wanted to be able to see what you guys said. So now that we've talked about picking a logo font, let's talk about customizing your logo font. Real quick, we're going to take a detour. What about font licensing? So your license is going to be dependent on how you use your font. I'm not necessarily the best person to speak on this, but Creative Market does have like a page where they talk about licensing. The way I understand it is like if you're using it to design things, you want the desktop license, which is like usually the first one they recommend. If you're using the font on a website and you're like uploading that font to a website, you're going to want the web font version. And then if you're using it in an app, you want the app version. So it's all about usage, but wherever you buy your fonts should have some sort of like licensing breakdown of like which license you use. Typically, if I'm using it for a logo and I'm using a design program to create the logo, I would only get the desktop version. But if I was using that typeface on a website, then I would get the desktop version and the web version. I hope that's clear. Okay, customizing your font. I had the most fun making this. So after you've chosen a logo font, you might want to add some fun little unique customizations. This is a logo I found on Pinterest. I just like always come back to this logo. I think it's so fun and cool. And there are a lot of different ways that you can customize your logo, even with like simple design programs. So here are some ways that you can customize a wordmark logo. You can mix and match different typefaces. So for all of these examples, I use the same brand name, Design House. So in this top example, I use like a script font for the first letter of house just to add in like a fun new logo or letter style. And then in this one, I use, I think, perfectly 90s font. And I use the regular version for design and then the italic version for house. This is like a really common thing to do for logo design is just add in different typefaces. And that's what this brand did. They just switched up the typefaces, but it just makes it feel super, super custom. You could also adjust spacing. You could stretch or compress space between words or letters, and it doesn't have to be uniform. Like this example has more spacing between all the letters of the brand, but you could also just do it between like two letters or between the words. This one has it compressed where the spacing is reduced and everything's just a little bit more snug and close together. You could do that for the whole brand name or just certain words. And if we go back to the what was it? Spotify logo. They did that. They compressed the space between the F and the Y. So like there's lots of fun creative ways that you can do that. Now you could also use ligatures. Ligatures are really fun. This is where you combine two or more letters into a single glyph, or you let the letters flow into each other. So this is really going to depend on like the letters in your brand name because some typefaces have glyphs already built into the font. But like for this one, the I and the G get combined together. So you could have some fun ways to bring them together. You could also like combine, I don't know, the H and the A, for example, and connect these two lines. So there's lots of ways that you can have letters flow. That's one of the more common ways that designers add some customization to logos. You could also add textures. You could add a grunge, wood grain, or metallic effect to your logos. You can do this manually, like in Photoshop, or you could just use fonts that have this sort of thing built into it. So these have like a distressed or metal stamp vibe. You could use a logo like that, which are pretty cool. You could alter strokes. You can adjust the weight of the font to create a more bold or a more refined feel. So like for this logo, we've got a thinner version on top for design and a thicker font for house or more weight on the stroke. And this one, we've got maybe like an outlined version for design and a filled version for house. You can mix and match those. You could also move letters. This one's a really fun way to customize things. You can just outline the stroke of your letters and then move them around. I did all of these in Figma too. I did not use Adobe for this. I just used Figma. So you can move individual letters around. So you can like have them have a bouncy look like this, which is really fun. Or like for this one, I just flipped the E around 180 degrees, just gives it a little something special. You could also adjust colors. You could just use multiple colors within the brand logo. So you can have like one word be one color, another be a different, or you can have multiple colors within the same word. That's what I do. I'll show you in a minute, but like that's how I make my logo different. Yeah, every one of them feels so different. And I just want to do another real quick disclaimer. There is no rule that you have to customize your wordmark logo like at all. And I think that there could be pressures from social media that make us feel like we have to all have these very, very customized logos. But you are literally allowed to just type out your brand name, choose a font that matches your vibe, and use that as a wordmark logo. That's allowed. You are fully allowed to do that. But if you want to customize it, those were some ways that you can customize it. And here are some very, very successful brands that do that. In case you like don't believe me and you're like, yeah, but you know, the really good brands customize it. Here are some that don't. Call Her Daddy. I'm sorry about the quality of this image, but I had to pull it from social media. She just uses her brand font as her logo, and they just did a rebrand. I'm sure it was a nice investment. This podcast is extremely successful. I think the overarching like Unwell company just had a deal for $100 million last month. This one is just so simple, effective, and great. Nothing too complex with this logo. Tiffany & Co. Tiffany just uses their brand font as a logo. Super, super smart. Custom word marks. What industries usually this go into? Kim, could you clarify? I want to answer that, but I'd like to know more about what you are asking about. Yeah, Tiffany & Co. Super simple. And Jeep's logo is so simple, and yet it feels like them. They just found a really good font, and I'm sure maybe they overthought things, customized it a bit, but it really is just like a simple wordmark logo, and it works well for them. Okay, so after you have chosen your logo font and you have customized your font a bit to your liking, then if you want, you can add some extra design elements. So you can add any shapes or icons or illustrations that you want in your brand logo. I'm going to differentiate those because they're all a little different and they can sound like they're the same thing, like shapes and icons, but they are different. So shapes are geometric or organic forms, and they usually add structure or balance to a design. You can find them pretty much in any design program. Like any design program can make squares or rectangles or circles or ovals or pill shapes. You can also find them on Creative Market. You can find a ton on Canva. I found all of these on Canva, and there can be like types of shapes within each one. So you could just have like a regular circle or square. You could have an arch. You could have a scalloped arch. You could have a line. You could have a dotted line. You could have a blob. There are lots of different types of shapes that you can use. You could also use icons. Icons are simple symbolic representations used to communicate ideas or functions very quickly and easily. So icons are just like simple, easy ways to identify something. I have them in black and white here, but they can also be in color. Like, don't feel like they have to be in black and white, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you just kind of know what it is. My favorite place to find icons is Noun Project. Fun fact, I've been an entrepreneur for 8 years, well before I was a designer. Noun Project was the very first like monthly subscription I signed up for. I think I paid $10 a month for it, and I have paid for it every month of my entrepreneurial career. I just love Noun Project. It's been so great because you can use the PNG or SVG versions of these icons so you can manipulate them. So like if I wanted to use this icon in a project, I could purchase or not purchase it. I could download the SVG and then I could maybe alter like the shape of this towel or the shape of this towel or the face. And I really love just how I can customize these existing icons. Illustrations. Illustrations are hand-drawn or digitally curated images that add character and personality to a design. So my favorite places to find these are Creative Market, Envato Elements, Etsy. Etsy's got some really good illustrations. You can also hand draw these if you're like talented. This one is one that I created with a client, Sari from Not Sorry Art. She does like all these nostalgic, cool paintings, and we were working on some branding elements for her. So she drew this like bubblegum tape thing. And then I added in the like offset color behind it. And these are just like fun little things that you can add to either brand elements or to the logo. Yeah, I could not draw this. Thankfully, Sari could draw this. I could not. But illustrations can be really, really fun. So like here are some examples of logos before adding a design element and after. And neither one is like better or worse. I'm just showing you sort of how it changes the logo vibe. And for almost all of these examples, actually for every example, the brand ended up using both as different variations. So like on the left here is the word mark. And on the right is the combination mark where we have this, I think this is West Virginia, in this colorful stamp. And then we've got their tagline here. For this one, we've got Austin Boot Company, and then we've got Austin Boot Company with some fun, colorful, sparkly boots. In this one, we've got Adroit Therapy Services, and with design elements, we have this custom like brain bubble logo and this bar behind therapy services. So you can add some design elements to, thank you, I was really proud of Adroit. That was one of my first logos, and I felt like really proud of it. There are lots of ways that you can like sort of add some extra zhuzh to a wordmark logo, but that doesn't make the wordmark logo any less useful in other places. Like I would use this for the website header, and I would maybe use this on a business card. And that brings me to my last step. You want to create variations and export your brand logo. So you want to create your logo variations and export. This is a brand that we worked on a few years ago. This is Tim and Finn. They're travel bloggers, and we wanted them to have lots of variations to use on like their merch, their marketing materials, social media. They're big on YouTube, so we wanted them to have YouTube stamps, things like that. So that's your next step, is making variations. Logo variations are variations or versions of the same brand concept. So like for Canva, we've got this round logo with the Canva mark. Then we have this word mark. And then we have this, what I would call Favicon. So these all represent Canva, but they use them in different places. So a horizontal logo, and this is great for small horizontal spaces, like where you don't have a ton of vertical space and you kind of have like a compressed space that you need a logo. So like the most iconic part or the most memorable place that you would put a horizontal logo is at the website, the top of your website, because you tend to not have like a ton of space up there. So you want something that squeezes in really nicely. Then you might want a square logo. This is great for square or circular spaces where you have even vertical and horizontal space. So like promotional merch or social media, or if you work with like local magazines or organizations and you're doing a promo for them, they'll usually ask you for like a square version of your logo. So Canva's got a really great square version. Favicon, sometimes known as Favicon. And this is a version for when you need a very small version of your logo that's still recognizable. This tends to be like square or round shape. And this is where you would put this in like your website favicon. So if we just look here, like we've got my Gmail right here. We've got the Canva one. We've got, this is for my website. This is for Creative Market. So that's where a favicon goes. It's a very small place that someone should be able to still recognize your brand. So you don't want to add like too much detail, like at all. Okay, and then your brand stamp. This is also like your abstract mark. This just focuses on the emblem or icon or symbol part of your logo. So like Apple, you could recognize from this little brand stamp. So they put that like on the back of their computers. And then animated logos. This is a version of your logo that has motion effects or animations. So like this is one for, I think, Gmail or Google. These are super cool. They tend to be a little bit on the pricier side and you might not use them everywhere, but like maybe if you're a YouTuber or you want something for your email signature, you could make an animated version of your logo. Canva has some pretty good animation effects too that you could use. Not anything, you know, like this, but you could make something pretty cool. Okay, so the question that I'm asking myself. Do you need to have all of those different logo variations? Like I think I just named 6 different variations. Do you need to have all of them? Um, my friends, no, you do not. You only need to have the logo variations that make sense for how you will actually use your brand elements. So, like personally, for me, I only use 2. I use I use a horizontal logo and a favicon or brand stamp. And someone actually said, what about a very long brand name? 3 words. Do you have samples? Me, I'm a sample. I have 4 words in my brand name. And when I started my brand, I had people in my life that were like, that's a mouthful. That's a really long brand name, like the Color Palette Studio. And I had people try to talk me out of it. And I was like, no, it's simple. I like it. It says exactly what it's going to be. So don't be scared of a long brand name as long as it's simple and directs people to you. There are different ways that you can like stack the letters or make them feel like relatable or I guess like connected. But long brand names can be simple and easy too. For me, I just use color to differentiate my letters and bring some fun to it. And then I've got this like color palette brand stamp. So here's that process step by step. You're going to first craft a brand personality, come up with that list of like 5 to 10 brand personality words. Then you're going to choose a design style that matches. Then you're going to choose a logo font. Then you're going to customize your logo font. Then you're going to add some design elements, maybe some illustrations or icons. And then you're going to make variations and export your logo. Does that feel like something you could do? Type in a 1 if this feels like a simple logo process that you could do. Okay, I'm so glad because it can be this simple. And like in full disclosure, you could skip steps 1 and 2 and just choose a logo font. Like if you're like, oh, I really like that font, it's going to be a little bit less strategic, but this is a process that anyone can follow in 1 hour. So if you're a graphic designer and you want to offer like VIP days and you're like wanting to offer logos and color palettes and font pairings and brand guidelines in that one VIP day, this is a really, really duplicatable process. Now, what do you do after you make your logo? Here's sort of my simple brand checklist. I create a logo. I choose some brand colors. I choose my brand fonts. I like to visualize and style everything. And then I make brand guidelines. And there's some strategy that goes in above here, like making that brand personality and choosing the design style. But once I know those things, I can go through and finish the list. So I have made some tools to help all of you with your brand design process. And making logos is so simple, and there are great design programs that you can use. So I have tools for the other steps. So one of the tools that I wanted to show you is the Color Palette Builder. This is a tool that we created to help you make easy, semi-custom, ready-to-use color palettes in 60 seconds or less. Chris can drop the link in there. And if you did want to get the Color Palette Builder today, you can save $20. I'm just doing a discount for the workshop attendees. So instead of it being $97, you get it for $77, which it hasn't been on sale in a really long time. But I want to show you the Color Palette Builder because like it's one of our best-selling tools. And it's really important to use after you've like put in the time to make an amazing logo. You can just build a color palette really easily. So instead of like overthinking it and taking 2 weeks to make a color palette, here's what you do. You just scroll through these different design styles. So you can like shop through, and each design style has a color palette formula that gets updated as you scroll through. So like we were going with that. Well, I know a lot of you like the boho style. The bright and warm one is really fun for the boho style. We can do that. Let's make a boho palette. So what we would do is just click to add colors. So we can add in like a white, we can add in like a cream. We want to choose at least 2 light colors. So maybe we can do like a deeper beige and like a light pink or maybe an orange. And then we can choose a bright color. So maybe we go with like a watermelon pink and maybe like a mustardy yellow. And then we choose a dark color. So we can go with like a nice deep reddish brown. And then you can click this button and it will use AI to generate color names. So you can actually have it like add color names so that you don't have to think of like every single color name if you want to have something a little fun. I mean, you can even customize it too if you want it to be like ice cream store themed or something. And then you can click test all pairings to view all the text and background contrast scores, which is super cool. or you could click show compliant pairings and only view the ones that have a 4.5 or higher. And then you get to select your favorites. So like, let's say you don't like anything with these two color backgrounds, but you like these more softer ones. You can click show palette and you can view your full color palette and your favorite high contrast pairs, the ones that you should use for text and backgrounds. And then you can export it. You can send it to your clients. So like we just did that in 60 seconds. That's sort of the vibe that we want all of our tools to have. We want it to be so that you can go into it knowing a design style and come out with a font pairing tool or with a color palette or font. Allegra asked about fonts. I'm actually going to answer that in a bit, Allegra. That's a really great question. Now, if you wanted to bundle our tools, we kind of have tools for all those other steps. So if you wanted to cover your color palette and your font pairings and your brand guidelines, you can get the 3 best-selling tools for $30 off the bundle. So the bundle's already a massive discount, and then we made another special discount code to take off another $30. So you can use code Happy Logo Bundle, and Chris can send that link and the discount code in the chat. But that is like the best price. It's like $130 some off the total. It's the best discount we've done in a bit. So these tools all work together, and they're just like a good toolkit to have if you're a brand designer, if you want to save time. Okay, the brand stamp. Let's cover how to make a brand stamp. So, you've made your wordmark logo. Now we want to talk about making a brand stamp, which is a simplified version of a logo. It's usually often used as a small iconic mark or emblem that represents a brand. And typically it's like round or square. So some examples might be like the Target bullseye or the Adobe Illustrator, Spotify, Canva. And here's some places that you might use a brand stamp. You might use it on your social media profile picture, as a favicon on your website, on your packaging, on your merch, really anywhere that you want like a smaller version of your brand logo. And here are some just easy ways to make a brand stamp. It does not have to be too complicated. One thing you could do is you could just use a brand icon or illustration. So if you already have an icon or a mark that you're using in your brand, you can just use that as your brand stamp. Super simple and easy. You can even throw like a background circle behind it or dotted line behind it or something. You could also use your brand's initials. You could just use your fonts and your colors and your initials to create a simple brand mark. We did that for Beach Reads and Bubbly, because obviously we didn't want to put her full brand name into this tiny little circle. So we just did her initials and then added a fun border. Canva uses a cool little gradient. You could also use your brand pattern or image. So if there's like a pattern that represents your brand, or if you just want to use like your profile image, you could do that. Super easy. Okay, I hope that was clear. Now I want to cover my favorite design softwares. This is the last little topic that we're going to be covering. There are free and premium design softwares that you can use. So there are lots and lots of different logo design softwares out there. I'm going to cover the 3 main ones. There's Canva, Figma, and Adobe Illustrator. They all have different strengths and weaknesses. There is no one perfect software out there, and I'm just going to cover like the pros and the cons of each of them. So we're going to start with Canva, and we're going to compare all 3 design softwares on affordability, design customizations, and user friendliness. Canva is by far the most affordable. They have a free version. They also have like a pretty inexpensive pro version. They give you a lot of design, or they give you minimal design customizations. They have a lot of design assets that you can use, but you can't really customize them. Like you can't really move letter shapes around or detach them from the words. So you're limited on your customizations, but it is very, very user-friendly. Like I know a lot of us are using Canva in here. Even if you're not like a professional designer, you can pretty much pick up Canva pretty easily. There are some fun perks of Canva. They have a massive library of fonts, which is great if you want to play around with different brand fonts before buying one, because you could just kind of shop within Canva first. They also have design elements, shapes, templates, tons of stuff that you can use. Like if I search suntan, I can see all these different fun elements and shapes and things. So they have a lot of really cool stuff within the program that you can shop from. Figma. Figma is like sort of right in the middle. If there's like baby bear, mama bear, papa bear, Figma's mama bear. It's like right in the middle. It's pretty affordable. Oh gosh, don't quote me on this, but I think my monthly subscription is like 20-ish a month or something, 20 or $30. It's not unreasonable. The design customizations, are pretty middle of the road. You can like stretch out some letters, you can move things around. All of those font customizations that I showed you before, I did those in Canva, or oh my gosh, I did those in Figma. So you can mess with fonts a little bit in there. And it's pretty user friendly. There's not a huge steep learning curve to using Figma. They've simplified it a lot. One fun perk with Figma is that you can have a massive board with all of your design elements in it. So I use Figma to hold everything for my brand. I use it to hold my logos, my style guides, my web design. I use it a lot for web design stuff. And they have lots of fun plugins, which is cool. So Figma is kind of like a good workhorse, especially if you spend a lot of time in web design. And then Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is like the profesh tool. This is the one that a pro would use. This one is definitely on the more premium end price-wise. I pay for the full Adobe suite. It is not cheap, but I like having these professional tools when I need to use them. You can customize pretty much anything in Adobe Illustrator. So it is extremely customizable and pretty amazing in that sense. Like it gives you the most tools. It's a workhorse. And I would say you need a lot of skill to use Adobe Illustrator. When I first got started out, I was so frustrated and overwhelmed with Adobe Illustrator. Thankfully, YouTube tutorials helped me a lot, but it's one of those like more professional tools. Some perks of Illustrator are that you can literally customize anything. So you can draw logos from scratch. You can design your own custom illustrations. You can integrate with other Adobe programs. This is just like the fancy schmancy software for pros. Let me see. Okay, I'm getting a chat. Hold on. Sorry, Chris was sending me a chat. The bundle link is the same as the builder. Yes, if you want to get the bundle, you can just go to the color palette builder and click to add those other tools. And then when you go to checkout, you can add that extra discount code in there. So IT stuff. InDesign is cool too. InDesign, I feel like feels a lot like Figma to me. Yeah, I like InDesign. I just tend to use Figma more. So here's your logo design software cheat sheet. So we've got Canva, Figma, and Adobe, and like the basics are that Canva is just the easiest and cheapest and has a lot of pre-made stuff in it. Figma, vector-based, lots of collaboration options and storage options. Adobe, you can do the most. It's your biggest workhorse. You can like learn, you can make the most customizable stuff, but also it's not the easiest to use. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you learn, it's pretty cool. Okay, so now we're going to take a very quick legal detour. There's a lot of talk on social media about creating logos in Canva. And the consensus kind of is don't create a logo in Canva because you can't trademark it. That's like a topic that's big on social media. I saw someone in the comments section comment it. So like, is this true? Let's talk about it because I think it's really important that we cover it if we're talking about making logos in Canva. So sort of like a big fat sort of. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but here's like the TLDR, the too long didn't read. And also I'm not a lawyer. This is my understanding as a designer. So if you have like strict legal questions, definitely ask someone who's qualified. But I've asked my lawyer to give me a breakdown, and here's what we've kind of taken away or understood. When you use Canva's design elements, like their icons or illustrations or stock images, you do not have exclusive rights to use them. Other Canva users can also use those design elements in their designs, and they do not, or they will not provide any exclusive rights to any of the elements. So if you're like, oh, I've fallen in love with this shape, Canva, can I buy it from you? And can I make sure that no one else can use it? Like they won't do that. So it's important to understand trademarking basics because they explicitly say you cannot trademark a logo using one of our design elements. So is trademarking a logo the most important thing for you or a project? Like it's important to know on the front end if you're designing it for your own brand or you're designing it for a client, like make sure that you have that conversation before you use a Canva design element. And I also feel like it's important to talk about the difference between trademarking a brand name and trademarking a brand logo. Like there's a difference between trademarking the word Target and trademarking the bullseye for Target. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you want more like legal help with this sort of thing, I recommend talking to my friend Maria. She's the Lunar Lawyer on social media. She's been my go-to legal resource for like over 5 years. She's helped me with business acquisition stuff, IP, trademarks. So if you have legal questions, Maria is going to be your go-to. And Chris just shared her website. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so now I'm going to just cover in the last minute or so some frequently asked questions, things that kind of come up around logos. Can you use the same font for your logo and your heading font? Yeah, totally. If you want to do that, that's absolutely possible. There are some big brands that do that, like Call Her Daddy, or I think Duncan, or Chobani. You can use the same font for your logo and your heading font. You can also use different fonts. It really just, you want to make sure that everything works together. I will say if you use different fonts, then it helps your logo font stand out a little bit more if it's not the same as your heading font. But then you can also make the reverse argument that if your logo font and your heading font are the same, then it helps everything feel more cohesive. So the answer is yes. You don't have to, but yes. Which format is best for logo exporting? PNG, JPEG, PDF, SVG. I like to export in PNG, JPEG, and SVG. I particularly like SVGs because you can change the colors of that logo. So like I like to have SVG versions of all my logos so that I can customize colors, but that's just like the designer, the picky designer in me. But at the very least, PNG and JPEGs are great. Okay, that is everything that I needed to cover. What questions do you have? Or like, let me know your thoughts. Was this workshop helpful? Did you learn anything new? Did this feel like a permission slip to make logos in a simple and easy way? Good. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, logos don't have to be hard. They don't have to be painful to make. And you don't have to take like 3 weeks to make a logo to be a good designer. When's our next webinar? We're going to be doing one either at the end of this month or early next month. So stay tuned. And we're going to be doing like a really cool one. Um, all right. CMYK workflow. Okay, someone asked about CMYK. So I want to show you the Color Buddy. This is a Chrome extension that we created. It's totally free. You can find it on our website under freebies. So you can like create, I'll use this color palette that I made in the color palette builder. I'm gonna click generate URL and copy this URL. And then I'm gonna go to the Color Buddy. I'm gonna create a new profile. So I'll just title this one workshop. Okay. And then I'm going to go to that new profile here and then paste in that code from the color palette builder and click populate. And it's going to bring in all of my brand colors and my favorite pairings. And then you can flip between hex, RGB, and CMYK. So if you're working with a client and they need like the CMYK for their pink, you can just click copy on that one and send it over. And you can store all your clients' color palettes in here, which is super, super cool. So the Color Buddy is like the perfect little tool for converting CMYK. I'm going to leave these guys up here on the screen, the discount codes, because I saw some questions about that. So I will leave these here. Changing from hex to RGB to CMYK is worth it alone. Yeah, it is. It's so easy to be able to switch between those because there's no like great tool for that. So we made it. Let's see. How do you balance the dimensions of elements in a combined logo? It's really going to be like up to your personal eye and like how you can balance things. I would say, I tend to make sure that my icon or my mark is at least, like half the size of the words and that it's not bigger than the letters in the word mark, but it really just depends. And if you're looking for some inspiration, I would recommend going to Creative Market or a design like sales program and look up some logo templates. Like you can just search logo template and kind of just get a feel for like vibes. Like I did not, I searched in fonts. Hold on, let me, logo templates. So you can see some different like ways that people stack things or move things around, which is pretty cool. In Canva, if you alter one of their icons or images or layer it, does that change it enough to not have to deal with TM issues? Sydney, as I understand it, that is not enough. I think they're pretty strict on that for trademarking. But like, do you have to trademark every logo? Not necessarily. You can use it without a trademark. Trademark just gives you that protection that no one else can use it. Um, I'm creating a logo for a fundraiser for my nonprofit's 75th anniversary. How alike should the event logo be to the brand logo? So, Nikki, what you can do is kind of consider it to be like a sub brand of the top brand. So, a good example is Jenna Kutcher. Jenna Kutcher's like main brand is let's see, Jenna Kutcher. This is like her main brand or business. But then she also has this podcast, which is the Goal Digger. So this is kind of a sub brand within her main brand. So I think you want them to look like they're cousins, but they don't have to look identical. It's easy to make them look identical. Like if you just want to use your existing brand assets and your fonts and your colors, that's easy. But if you want it to sort of have its own vibe or energy, you can absolutely use like like a new set of fonts and colors and design elements. How would you view creating logos for courses, programs under a larger personal brand that each has its own? Um, okay, another brand that I'm going to pull up is Drybar. So like I would look at product-based brands to get inspiration there. So like Drybar is like this overarching brand, but then they have these series, so many pop-ups. They have all of these products and collections within them. So each collection has its own like color palette and vibe, but they all share the same fonts and the same like icons. So I would say find like one part that you can update for each individual course element, but leave the rest the same. So maybe that one element might be color that's changing, or maybe it's the icons that change. Maybe it's the fonts. Probably not the fonts though. Okay, I think that's all the time I have to answer questions. I want to let people kind of get back to the rest of their day. But I am so, so, so grateful that you all came to this workshop. I'm going to be sending out the replay later today, so that is going to be going out. And I will send out the replay, the workshop slides. And if you have any questions, you can reach me via email. But for now, stay tuned. We're going to be doing another workshop in a couple weeks, all about like visualizing and styling your fonts and colors together, which is going to be so much fun. But again, thank you so, so much for supporting this brand, getting the tools, and attending these workshops. I'm always so happy to do them. And I hope that you get to take something away, whether it's permission to simplify things or to have fun creatively with your logos. It does not have to be painful. It can and should be very fun. And thank you to Chris for running the chat and for answering all of our questions and making our tools. Chris is working on a really cool tool right now. We can't talk about it yet, but a very cool tool is coming soon. um, I know we can't say it, but thank you, Chris. And thank you all for coming. Bye.